Right here, main event.x. You already know it. Two words right here. You already know it. Yeah.
In this maze with so many lanes to consider, eating with saints and sinners, stay for dinner. Thinking on what does it take to make a winner. Working on self, but temptation's a killer. Pray to the giver, go cleanse that clue. Bathe in a river, maintain your inner. Rest is right for souls, but she ain't a quitter. When I sight the scope, I aim to deliver. Create a picture, what did money say to the dealer? Look like milk honey, but it tastes bitter. Climate contrarians are racing our winters. These politicians faker than the way that they slither. Take this with you, like choices that we pay in life. Who will be the voice when the chaos ignites? And you might think nothing could ever make it right, but sometimes the thieves gotta take to the night.
We in the place to be, sinners and saints, it's you and me. Who takes the weight for free to figure it out? Through fear and doubt, confidence and faith, we're all sinners and saints. Sinners and saints, the place to be, sinners and saints, it's you and me. Who takes the weight for free to figure it out? Through fear and doubt, confidence and faith, we're all sinners and saints. Sinners and saints, sinners and saints. Still the inner meditate till I envision the gates, limited weight. Hold time for the gold mines inflate. Illusion stacking the plate, solutions and illusions. So fuck it, I'm cracking the safe. Numbers combine to form the front lines. In the clash between earnest and evil, my diet is unswine. Neutralize the mind, third eye scrutinize the lies. Capital consuming all the ties. Wear your uniform and pride. Exhausted and fuming, economy is booming. Armageddon looming, the human eyes on the prize. Brewing heavenly highs, and that's where iron gets. Crucify the last of the saints on earth. A rebirth in the curse, but the ride in reverse. And we thirst for salvation. Pledge allegiance to nations, invasions of souls. Calculating the dough, making the aliens the foes. In that population control. We in the place to be, sinners and saints, it's you and me. Who takes the weight for free to figure it out? Through fear and doubt, confidence and faith, we're all sinners and saints. Sinners and saints, the place to be, sinners and saints, it's you and me. Who takes the weight for free to figure it out? Through fear and doubt, confidence and faith, we're all sinners and saints. Sinners and saints.
The line between a sinner and a winner can determine your dinner. That line. You got a strong physical makeup. Wake up. Wake up. Or is it just space you take up? You do it, boy. The 7 streams of income fuel me. You not gon' fool me. I'm with the guards by the school beat. The main event is Rob's the Great Dot. And I've never been impressed of what the next man's got. Create my own lane. I go to countries on planes and put my feet in the sand, and then have a drink in my hand. This rap game can be a brutal thing, but the God, he is straight. I don't wanna be the king. I stay driven, and then I flip what's given and I eat. I'ma always compete. Always. Because that's what champions do. And right about now I mastered my 1-2.
Never is a man completely a saint or completely a sinner. The Buddha is in the robber and in the prostitute. God is everywhere.
God is everywhere?
Huh? You see the stone? This stone, in a certain length of time, will become soil. And from that soil, it will become a plant, maybe an animal or a man.
Mosques to cathedrals, I see people escaping the evil in the world, embracing equal, seeing to the steeple for the words of hope from the creator to be greater. But first, they question their purpose and look to verses, cause we're only specks and multiverses, living check to check with empty purses. Our soul disperses, becomes one with Brahma, Yahweh, Allah, God the sacred father. Some find relief in bottles and enrolling ganja, lighting incense and candelabras. Sit still and chill, and let the holy river fill our soul. Unfold the sacred scroll. Let the God take control of the will and feel what your sister feels and control your will. So we kneel and we ask for mercy concealed in the lessons. Each jewel is a blessing. Know it.
Inspiration when I write. Inspiration when I write. Inspiration when I write. Inspiration, never knew what that divine would bring through it. Inspiration when I write. Inspiration when I write. Inspiration when I write. Inspiration, never knew what that divine to bring through it.
But if God would like me, would he ignore us that before the death? On it, I can't afford a bet, I plan to get more in depth. Hopped aboard a jet with some of my favorite cats, like in bottles with pets. I had a book of Orishas, it was a book of Orishas that I took in a piece of my soul captive. Had me intrigued in a zone, believe in the known, got in a league of his own. So I started practicing, became active in the worship of a higher being. I admire seeing folks entirety put into something that provides the meaning. So whatever circle you decide to be in, choose wisely, don't lose time being scared of what others think of your coven. See the right path, you on the brink of discovery. Fight back before you sink in another sea. It's all love when I link with my brother Chi.
Inspiration when I write. Inspiration, inspiration when I write. Inspiration, inspiration when I write. Inspiration, never knew what that divine to bring through it. Inspiration when I write. Inspiration, inspiration when I write. Inspiration, inspiration when I write. Inspiration, never knew what that divine to bring through it.
Maybe the gods be on Olympus dancing, passing the time, and we don't even got no chances believing in something more powerful than days we live. Whether gods, ghosts, angels, or aliens. So I study self to see what man know. Just like sunlight helping the plants grow. Dive deep in it, whatever you believe, with everything in your ear, amidst everything to read. Me, I know how far my eyes can see, but feel something more clever than we, the energy. What wizardry? Hard if you study history, but how do you explain synchronicity and symmetry? Now I ain't the sharpest tool in the shed, but I know there's too many been fooled and misled. Jewels for your head, for you led to the den of faith. Smooth on the ledge will be blessed to regenerate.
Sound better, huh?
The hip-hop writer is a creator, composing, understanding words of culture brilliance, powering a rebalance of the elements equally. Pages of rejuvenated reaffirmation, simply the almighty leadership of insightful craft work that stands to build through any conversation born to be. Yet his daily duty is as a journalist that questions properly and uses his ears to filter the real. And as the art decays by dilution, he concentrates the best again and again, exposing it in the print. Today's journalist and tomorrow's historian he listens to share. Here is that necessary attempt executed again and again and again. This is the Power Right Show on S.STREET Media. This is your brother, the lone low life with the home-sewn garment, the Boricua with the build, the true and living God, stepping in score, SUNEZ Allah, a.k.a. Skillustrator Low, and we're on S.STREET Media, the evolution of media, where every intrigue will have its own show, every incredible thought will have its own episode, and every timeless insight will be archived. And as I said, this show is about my element of hip-hop, the writer of art and science on music, as I always say. The only show in history on this element that I have helped pioneer for over, 20, 25 something years and shit. Getting old with this, right? But I got a book out now. Let's plug everything early. Let's waste all your money in the beginning of the show so that way you have no distractions. The book out now is The Filtered Real, Essays from the Invisible Renaissance. There is no book covering this decade of music. I'm going to prove it again as this show goes along with my guest. This book, to put it succinctly, was a collection of essays that I was writing originally when I was doing my reel of the year, when I was doing the reel of 2018. I realized that there was so much music, right? And I had about 200 plus albums that I thought were worthwhile. So what happened is I was like, I can't write no internet article about this. This is going to be like 50 pages and stuff like that. So let me make this a quick book. But what happened was I started to use, because it was such a diverse amount of artists that made music that kind of encapsulated the entire decade. There was enough from enough people that dominated throughout the decade that I could basically highlight and really riff into all of the trends of the 2010s, of which I call the Invisible Renaissance. And so I was able to describe why I call this the Invisible Renaissance, that after the dark ages of the 2000s, which I've been riffing off air anywhere I can be at, where the standardizing of a dilution of music was made. And there was a resurgence, though, not only in quality, but also in quantity. And for a lot of these artists, they can rival and they could stay at the same rack to me as some of the 90s records. You know what I mean? That's how I feel. And, you know, it has all these essays. It has the art and artistic poetry and prose that are inspired by all these works. But it mainly has this science on music, really breaking all this stuff down. And I also added some lists to it too, because everybody likes lists and shit, you know? But I didn't make a list of, you know, naming things 1 through 10, because after you get past 5, you're really dealing with favorites and knickknacks of differences, you know what I mean? But it was basically something to show you how deep this era has been, though. So I have like a list of artists that I think are going to continue to inspire this renaissance, and that thing goes almost 3 pages. All quality artists with great works and great works continuing. But I also have a list that unless you have the book, you haven't seen. And I go into a little bit more detail of artists that, because of their catalog that they were able to release in this decade, and because of their skill level and what they achieved, I consider essential MCs of this invisible renaissance. So I like to write things as myself, a collector of albums. So I wanted something where somebody was collecting and said, where do I start though? Who are those guys that are essential? And I give you the reasons why they're essential, so you get a framework and stuff, you know? People that dominated, that may not even, you know, it starts with people that aren't really from this decade, but they influence the decade so massively because they have such a different type of work. Whether it continues, like, to me, I consider the star of this invisible renaissance, Sean Price, for what he did, everything from his techniques. I think being the last superstar of hip hop that didn't have to be rich. You know what I mean? Everybody after him is a baller. They're all rich. They're not with the people. You know what I'm saying? You don't see a superstar like that anymore. You know, even the ones that are sincere and legendary, people, even let's say, for example, people love Nas and stuff, but they see him as an icon that has become rich. You know what I'm saying? And let's be honest, though, a lot of people don't give a damn about his lyrics, though. It's just that it's quality music that matches a persona that they want to achieve and stuff, and that becomes the riches, though, you know? And don't get me, you know, started on the others, you know what I mean? The Dark Age legends, you know what I mean? The respect fake legends that become the people that are beloved. But I didn't really focus on that. I focused on so much positive stuff, you know what I mean? And it's a real joy to make, you know. And when I did the book, I think that out of the entire book, I tried to put also certain innovations and certain things that I had created during that time too. So it has essays about unfortunately all the mass amount of eulogies that I had to write this decade, whether it was about my brother Kevlar 7, whether it was about Sean Price, whether it was about Fife, you know what I mean, and all these people like that. And that became the remembered imperfection section, you know what I mean? So, you know, it's something that I think is a beginning to covering this decade. So if you're watching this, you know, you can email me, you can contact me on the social media, SUNEZ on the IG. Get that book. I got it autographed for you. And, you know, I'll be autographing with some slick stuff. You know, I write some slick stuff in there. You know what I mean? But, and just for you, you know. But, so the book is out. If you don't want to get it from me, you can get it from Amazon. Again, before we continue, I'm going to give you a pause. Waste your money. Use your money right now. Nobody wants a Christmas gift that's irrelevant, though, 10 months from now, okay? So you got to get in that book. But every single episode, I really try to give you all an example of the art and art because it's fun, you know what I mean? And my next book is going to be called Art and Art, and it's really just the poetry that I've amassed, all the poetry that has been inspired by all the artists and MCs and stuff. And this is a piece that's going to be in it. It's a piece that's part of a larger piece that I published on my guest today. So I like to, preface them and give them an intro in that way. You know what I mean? But I didn't title this piece, you know what I mean? Because when I take them out of the shell that they're in, that box that they're in, and separate them as just poetry and art, they don't have a name and stuff. But I was thinking about these brothers, and I was like, you know, I'm just gonna call this piece "Diamonds in the Alcapurria." You know what I mean? like you know, like you just crack open the Alcapurria, and it's you know what I mean? But and you know what? I've never had a vegan Alcapurria. You know what I mean? Like, come on, man, somebody gotta hook me up with that. But this is how it went. It said, as if christened by rock, magical revenge is invoked when survival by slur is invoked to stay alive. Toss Arawak Zemi artifacts into the cauldron, invoking chants as, you ain't a killer, you still learning how to walk. The bridge is over, but bye-bye. Or sellouts got no worth, I think they better go soul search. Too many ciphers later, the smoke of rants, savage cants, and whirling wounds suffocate the tendencies to supremacy. We once knew the Boricua as immediately worthy of their dominant Afro-Arawak root through the oppressive Moorish court Spaniard conqueror blend. Today, you search among these lands barren of enchantment, you may find the rarest of them in their natural habitat. Preparing paragraphs on old plena palettes, consuming patele with jewels entrenched, a freedom fighting, salsa dura style independentista b-boy may still be bred in the Bronx. That same Pelon that took black-brown arts and collided them in collage to make hip-hop. And there, in the rubble of colonialism, amid significant shrapnel of racism and flooded pools of assimilating shells, lay these brothers right here. And that's my intro to my guest. My guests today are CHILO and Main Event. You know what I mean? One of my favorite duos right now. Peace to you, brothers.
Peace.
You know what I mean?
Thanks for having us, man.
You know what I mean? I'm sweating like a preacher here. You know what I mean? The lights that they got on me. You know what I mean? My producer's trying to make me nervous and stuff. Or I'm still mad about the Tribe Called Quest issues, you know what I mean, that we've had. But, you know, as a side note, just real quick to everybody, I think, I was saying that when we talk, you know, one of the reasons that I write, one of the reasons I'm so proud of writing this book, The Filtered Real, is because when I look back, such great music is passing people by and they don't even know it's out there. You know what I mean? And you brothers are like really perfect examples of that, because I'm like, I've been trying to get you the minute y'all release the album. You know what I'm saying? And I was like, yo, okay, just guaranteed. When I have time, gonna email these two brothers immediately and message them. You know what I mean? And where the hell are you? Where the hell are you? Where's everybody that's supposed to be listening to this stuff? Always talking about boom bap. It's nowhere this, nowhere that. You know what I mean? You're nowhere to be found. You know what I mean? Your crate digging skills are trash. You know what I mean? I gave you like a month or two, and you still didn't find these brothers. You know what I mean? But they're here with me, and I gotta tell you, like, the first album you guys did together was Magician's Revenge. This album is No Such Paradise. We're gonna get into that in a little bit. You know what I mean? And get into all the details of that, though. But because people don't really know who you brothers are, I think, you know, CHILO, the one interview we did with us, though, that wasn't saved for posterity, unfortunately. You know, so I you know, I need, and I know that the viewers, they definitely would like this to be like a complete build. So I want to start with you guys and just get into your Spider-Man origins. Like, how did you become, you know, the superheroes that you are in this hip-hop shit, you know? So, CHILO, let's start with you, you know?
How did I get into hip-hop?
Everything. Like, CHILO, how he became CHILO, you know?
How I became CHILO. Basically, you know, I started, I always used to write when I was little, whether it was... You know,
from the BX, right?
No, my mother's from the BX. My family's from the BX. When I met you, I was living in the BX for a good 10 years.
That's why I always thought you
I'm
was
originally
BX.
from Strong Island. I'm originally from Strong Island.
Right.
Lived in the BX for over 10 years. My family, my grandparents died. My mother born and died. Not died. Mother recipe. To my abuelo, different ex. But no, I'm originally from Long Island. I came up writing in sessions, house parties, things like that. Just like rhyming, battling. Back when people used to actually battle, not when you like had a whole week to write about somebody, right?
Right.
And started writing, you know, 12, 13 years old. I used to graffiti, and I took the name CHILO from a relative that had basically died in Puerto Rico. I thought the name was interesting, and I used to graffiti it. And that's basically what people used to call me. At the time, it was like my little street hustling name, whatever, my graffiti name, and it turned into my hip hop name. Early on as a teenager, I was in a group called GOS, Generation of Sons, me and about 3 other brothers from Long Island, from a town called Riverhead, which is way deep in Long Island. And
Keep going.
eventually, I moved to the Bronx in my early 20s, joined up with some cats that would do poetry and hip hop called 21 Poets. I had put out my first album a little bit before that with a brother named Rush, who you might have heard production on Little Kim, Foxy Brown, stuff like that, Killer Priest. And this guy Rush did the whole album, moved to the Bronx. I was working with these cats, 21 Poets, for some time. Got into poetry. Remember of an all-Latino poetry group called El Grito de Poetas. Rocked with them for some years, did a lot of ill stages, shows, learned the whole New York City circuit basically for some time while I was in the Bronx.
And that's the whole thing.
Sleeping on couches in the Bronx, you know what I'm saying? So I could go back to the Mecca where my mother is from and where my family is from.
That's the thing that bugs me out.
Did that whole journey.
You say that
you know?
you're an MC, you doing all the elements of hip hop you're engaging in. You're a poet, you're an author, he has books out. You know what I mean? He just says this casually. And I was doing spoken word, this and that, you know what I mean? But I like to really focus always on that concept of the MC being a master of ceremonies. You know, like I said this in another show when I was talking about it. I just use it as an example where people try to say, oh, Lauryn Hill, she sang and stuff like that. But the more things you can do on the mic makes you more of a master of ceremonies. Because brothers be talking, but if they could sing too, they'd be singing and rapping at the same time. And mastering the spoken word is a very different cipher than just MCing too. Like it changes, like
it's completely
a lot different in a lot of ways. There's a lot more performance engagement in it. It's different, you know.
There's more performance engagement, but in some cases I feel like it's different too, because when you're rhyming, you rhyme off that last bar. With poetry, you can kind of do different things. You can speed it up, you can slow it down. You don't necessarily have to rhyme off that last bar. So I learned a lot of my performance with poetry, really, spoken word. But it was spoken word that helped me get back on my hip hop, really, open more doors for hip hop. Because a lot of people, a lot of colleges even, they don't want to show love to hip hop, but yet they'll pay you money to come rock a show saying it's a poetry show, it's a spoken word show. You know what I'm saying? So I've got a lot more money doing poetry than I have done doing hip hop. You know,
right.
Colleges like Princeton paid 3 G's to come do an hour. You know what I mean, for the group. So it's like
that's nice, right there.
You know, whereas like hip hop, you don't see that all the time. And so I developed that. We really had a big buzz in New York City for a while, especially in the mid 2000s. We were one of the main poetry groups out here, and we had members from all different types of Latino origins. So we had South Americans, we had Central Americans, and Caribbeans. You know, my father's from Puerto Rico, and basically did that for a while. And for the last 7 years, I've kind of just been doing my own thing, trying to put more emphasis back into hip hop. While I'm here, I've always throughout this whole time continued to put out albums.
Right, because this decade you've been putting out a lot of stuff.
Albums.
Right. Yeah. You've been really prolific in this decade.
Been lucky enough to perform with a Grammy-winning orchestra recently. Won a Grammy 2015.
That's right. Tell us about that. Yeah.
Got down with a brother named Arturo Farrell, who is like Cuban royalty.
Yeah, and
Cuban
if you know your Afro-Cuban
royalty,
jazz, then you definitely know him and have works by him. Yeah.
And was lucky enough to do a song with them. And I just did a show with them last week actually, which is really inspirational because they brought out this female rappers from everywhere, from Cuba, from Chile, everybody, La Bruja they brought out from the Bronx, and just people all with new compositions. So I just have a brand new composition I just did with them, hoping something works with that too. But yeah, it was ill trying to like put light on a lot of things that are happening right now. A lot of people don't know that there's big people struggle going on right now in Chile. Besides what we have going on in Puerto Rico for the past how many should be over 100-something years. You know what I mean? But you know what I mean? And so that was inspirational too, man. That opened up a lot of doors as well. But yeah, no, just continuing to try to work with different people, different mediums, but still stay to the core of the hip hop.
Absolutely.
So I met this brother. I don't know if you want to go to him first. You want to tell me how we met?
Let me pause with that, and then let me segue to some because I had named you, and I didn't tell you this. I had named you because of the catalog you had and the work you did, and capping off with the work you've done with Main Event as one of the essential MCs of this invisible renaissance. And I had said this. I had said CHILO is a poet of prose on all pages and songs, an MC with one of the most intriguing and entertaining flows, filled with the idiosyncratic cadences and emphatic inflections. You know what I mean? And it's like sometimes I listen to you and I don't listen to you. You know what I'm saying? Like, I listen to you first for your style because it's so engaging to hear like where the inflections are and where they pop off and where you're gonna wave, and your voice even reverberates kind of like it has a reverb in it. You know what I mean? And then I listen and say, let me go back and actually see what he said. You know what I mean? So it's just been a joy to listen to you this decade. You know what I mean? It's one of the reasons I had the joy of writing this book. You know what I mean? And let people know about that, because when people go back and check out the catalog that you've had this decade, it's immense, it's engaging, and it leads back into all the poetry you've done. It leads back into all of these other works you did, and it leads back to a great poetry book as well. You know, so it's just dope. You know, and then we get Main Event. You know what I mean? Who's not only an MC but also a producer.
Super producer.
Who I cannot. I don't want to be. I always tell my producer I am not whosample.com. I am not the British snitches out there. But there are some samples.
He's not ruining hip hop.
There are samples that you use that I love the originals. You know what I mean? I'll tell you off air because you used some of my favorites. So the song and the way you used it was so dope. But Main Event, let me go and get your origins. You know what I mean? And how you got into this and stuff like that, because there's very little balance. You know, in the whole history of hip hop, of guys that MC as well as they produce, you know what I'm saying? They usually like a big gap between their skill sets like that, you know what I mean? And there's really no flow. And honestly, I thought the MCing that you had on this album though was blowing me away. You said some bars there that I'm gonna be Michael Eric Dyson some of the stuff, you know, and just quoting them. But let us know how the origins.
All right, thank you. Again, first, thank you for having me.
No doubt.
And CHILO. So the origins, I am from Corona, Queens, originally, which, you know, you got a lot of the 90s cats who were, you know, Beatnuts always comes to mind, but then Cool G Rap was, we went to the same elementary school, 15 years apart, right? So I grew up around just like hip hop, and from the time I was, I think, like 7 years old, watching Video Music Box, Rakim, you know, just did it. There was something masterful about him. And so I wanted to be a rapper. So I just started writing then, writing little raps, as Nas would call them, my little raps. Grew up with a big family. So in a big family, having 6 siblings, I ended up, I'm the middle kid, so I was always the one, there was like a dichotomy to me. I'd be the one that's like in the room experimenting with my writing, with my graffiti, with just like taking an answering machine. And it's interesting because I was like looking at some origins of different hip hop producers, and it's like you make music with whatever the heck you have at your disposal. So like I'd take an answering machine and I'd record like a beat off the top of like whatever. I know how like some folks used to do the loop. Yeah. So then I just like write to it. So that's I think my origins of both writing and MCing and production start from just need, which is where hip hop really does come from. This is need.
The ideal hip hop definition.
Exactly. And so there was a lot of definitely like when you think about like limited resources. My folks, Dominican immigrants, there was like 9 of us in the house, and so there was a lot of need, but there was also a lot of love there, and so I'm gonna say my hip hop origins start there. I would write. I also got into jazz early because I went to Louis Armstrong School, elementary school, and then Louis Armstrong Middle School, so I was in jazz band and stuff. So I was around music a lot. And then I guess for me, I was rap throughout high school. Never did, like, when I look at Chilo's the journeyman. He's like, for me, there's his story to me is inspiration. And so I'm going to get into like what he's meant to me as an artist, and working with Chilo as an artist has been revolutionary for me and has been inspirational. So I'm gonna get into that in a bit, but just like I would, I would rap, and then I got into production right after during college. I went away to college. I went to a predominantly white school. So again, you have a few things. It's isolating, but then you also have access to a bunch of different resources.
When you started producing, what were you using? Like what?
I started off actually. I don't even remember what the drum machine was. It was a crazy drum machine. This kid from like New Hampshire, and I started working with that. But I was like, yo, I need to get something, but I didn't have the money. So I got into FL Studio, which was the craze in 2000. What was it, like 2000? Fruity Loops in 2001 or so. Got my hands on, maybe 2 years later, got my hands on an MPC. But yeah, FL Studio was the joint. That's how I learned how to just like chop music, loop music, figure out the chords, and chopping up chords and so on and so forth, experimenting with sound. Really, like you start imitating first, right? And then you figure out your own thing.
Right.
But I've been, messing around to the detriment of my wife is always like, yo, you experimenting with these different machines, Like, I think every time Chilo comes through, there's like a different machine in the house. But yeah, currently I'm actually on like Ableton. I like Ableton a lot. But anyway, production-wise, that's taken up a lot of my like, I guess my drive and my attention, because again, just having the musical background for me wasn't. I think it's always been important to me. But again, working with Chilo.
And how did you guys meet?
Yeah, so
Let me tell the story.
You want to tell the story? You can go ahead.
Basically, at this point, I had lived in the Bronx so I told you I moved to the Bronx in my early 20s. I was living in the Bronx for about over 10 years. And then I moved to Queens. I moved to Queens around Jackson Heights, kind of like Jackson Heights, Corona, Elmhurst area, like where there's that, they kind of all meet. And I went out to drink with my friends one night. I'm out at a bar, and I meet this Mexican guy, and like end up doing shots with him. And we like talking politics and all kinds of stuff. And he's like, hey, I work at schools. I end up telling him I rhyme or do something, poetry, something. He's like, you should come do a workshop with me and my kids. So I go to the school one day. He's a teacher at the school. I go to the school, do a workshop with the kids, whatever. One of the cool things they were doing was that at the end of the year, they would take a week off. And they would have a week off at the end of the year. And he was recording an album with his kids. And I thought that was just mad cool. Like he was given the freedom to record a whole album with his kids at the end of the year. So they didn't say nothing. Like, we didn't really collab at that time or nothing. The guy called me back maybe like 1 or 2 more times. I even actually interviewed for a job there. Didn't get it, right? And interviewed for a job there. Once I tried to get a job. Yeah. Came back a couple more times at workshops. And then one time we just started talking because I knew he rhymed. I hadn't really heard his whole stuff and everything, but I knew he rhymed too. And he heard his beats, and I knew that he was doing this stuff with these kids, this inspirational stuff. And I don't know if he came to me and we just started talking about it one time, the idea of it, and we just kind of made it happen. So we started basically, that's how we met, man, through me meeting this Mexican guy in a bar, in Queens. And he brings me to the spot, and I meet Jose, who's a teacher at the school,
That's crazy.
And we were both history teachers.
Yeah.
Right.
So we both had commonalities, and we both like hit it off like the way we was talking hip hop earlier before the show started. Like we both like had all this like knowledge of hip hop, along with also like just like science fiction nerds too, man. Like different stuff. Like we was just into like a lot of the similar stuff. So, and then both being Latino, him Dominican, me Puerto Rican, and being history teachers. So we both
abstract stuff that comes out of the essentially Magician's Revenge.
Yeah, Magician's Revenge. That was like purposeful, right? Like it was we
I let him have he kind of executive produced a lot of the ideas behind this house. This is the idea of the theme. Me, I'm kind of like he'll send me over a beat, be like, this is what I hear for it, and I'll bring it out. But I'll be honest, a lot of the artistry behind the topics and the concepts of the album so far has been Jose.
Because when I listen to the beats that you're making, and then even more so on this album, to say that they're live is a real understatement. And it's not always just the BPM, being a little bit higher than normal now, because now everything is like slow and doom 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 doom, and but there's a live quality to it. They're tracks to jump on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They have a loud energy and stuff like that, and there's such a quality to the sound. You know what I'm saying? It's real qualitative. You know what I mean? We talked about another record off air, right?
Yeah.
There's such a strong sound quality in it, though. You know what I mean?
Especially for the resources we working with too. You know, like I think you did
part
a
of
really
it is-
good job.
I think it's
you know?
because of the
I think you did a really good job.
Yeah. But
Before I get into the actual albums and stuff like that, right? You mentioned that you were both teachers and stuff like that, right? And this is just a thoughts I had as far as like the writing and stuff. We're oppressed people. Then you guys are teaching history, and it just boggles my mind, though, and stuff like that. Because when I hear the lyrics on the album, though, you brothers are pretty militant. You brothers are revolutionary, and I'm like, how does this translate to what the constrictions that I always hear from other people that I know have tried to teach or do teach or in the school system? You know what I mean? Like, how is that even translating? Like the survival of it all. You know, like the difficulties of actually getting truth in it. You know, like.
Yeah.
What do you guys teach when you get to the Spanish-American War, you know, and you're up to what did happen to Puerto Rico, you know what I mean? Because that used to be Christmas. It's over, Christmas, and then you start World War I, January,
Right.
and things like that. Or like, they don't even mention Dominican Republic in school, so, and all that kind of stuff.
I mean, part of it, it's interesting as you ask that question is that I think a lot of our sessions, when we connect again, like a lot of the recording sessions, it's almost like a de-stress, a decompress. We kind of like dump what the struggle is almost of
Shit
teaching.
you can and can't do in the schools.
What you can and can't do. But at the same time, there's an autonomy to teaching. You got to find those little pockets, just like anything, right? You got to kind of find those little pockets where you bring the lives of the students that you're teaching into your curriculum. And so it would be like, it has to be relevant to them. And so, I mean, their history, I'm teaching, excuse me, I'm teaching predominantly, Latino young people in Queens. I'm teaching folks from a huge Tibetan and Nepalese contingent is now coming. So, like, how do we make sure that they're represented in the curriculum? There's, we find this, at least for me, I have some autonomy in the school that I teach in. I don't know that if I wasn't there, I don't know how I would be able to navigate.
Depending on the school.
Depending on the school that you're in.
At school.
Yeah,
and that's the thing too. Like, I have to teach to the Regents test. I have to make sure they know what they need to know to pass the Regents test and get on up out of here, right? But at the same time, I'm always teaching my side of the story. You know what I mean? Like, the first year I came, I've been here now about 5 years of school. I'm working now in Brooklyn. Most of my students are West Indian, but they knew from the jump, man. I had like the Albiso on the wall. I had like, like, this is my room and this is what's gonna go on here. So like, now that I'm actually able to teach some hip hop, I'm able to teach even more. Like I told somebody the other day, I was teaching a hip hop class and he kind of scoffed at me. He like laughed. He's like, what are they gonna all be rappers? They're gonna learn to be rappers. And he like made fun of me kind of. And I was like, I could teach more inspirational stuff in this hip hop class than I can in my history class. The last lesson I had, I was able to teach who the Black Panthers are, who Asada is, who Huey P. Newton is, and along with the whole like Iran-Contra scandal and the fact that George Bush Sr. was bringing in cocaine, the Rick Ross and all that, the real Rick Ross. So like, I'm able to teach some pretty groundbreaking stuff to them. Stuff that you can't really cover in history class. Go ahead.
No, and there's also ways like to even think for yourself is revolutionary right now, in the space that we're in.
People ain't allowed to think for themselves.
I definitely see that.
So creating spaces where students can think for themselves, creating questions that are open-ended, and students can look at the material not just by the textbook, but look at these sources, look at the different sides.
Yeah,
push the critical thinking.
Definitely, I definitely see that. You know what I'm saying? And I asked a question because it's always crucial. Some of the parts of the show, some of the segments on the show, one of the segments I call I call it the Peace Course notes, because the class that I teach at a law school in America, I call the Peace Course, right? Political education and civilization enrichment. But there I have complete autonomy. You know what I'm saying? Like, I could teach whoever off the street, whoever decides to come in. I have complete reign. You know what I'm saying? And if they not right and exact, you get dumped. You know what I mean? If they want to learn, then they can learn whatever they want to learn. You know what I'm saying? They're free to. They have complete freedom. And that's why I ask these questions, because we're all teaching some type of truth that our people need to know in different spaces and stuff, you know, and how that collides, how that works, how that interacts and stuff. Because, brother, let me tell you something, the brothers that I end up teaching, they don't find teachers like y'all, you know what I'm saying? So it's a blessing. And the other thing to segue before we talk about the actual album is being a teacher in the school system. I feel like it has something to do with how you rhyme, because all the stuff that you're saying never comes off preachy. And I think that's something that, because you're always around with kids and stuff like that, you learn like that this is corny, this is a little bit too, right? You know what I mean?
Like, that's so, yeah.
I'm never listening to the album and going, this sounds really like, I don't know, you know, it's too heavy, corny, you know?
Yeah.
Nothing's didactic, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You get that from the kids too. But even going back to before, like what you can say and what you can't say. I mean, I let them know the very first day of school, like we have a Eurocentric curriculum that they've given to you here, and like every chance that I get, you know, like I tell the other side of the story too, you know, like we have maps in the front of the room. The maps I have in the front of the room is a big map of Africa and a big map of the Caribbean, you know, so like they can see themselves, which is important, you know. You need to be able to see yourself in the school, and like. Even that, I'm glad I'm teaching global and not U.S. history, because how much can you watch these George? I mean,
no, it's true. At least there's places you can slip our people into it.
Some of the global, is a little more free with the curriculum than if you was teaching U.S. history, which is really slanted and really Eurocentric and really fucked up. And to the point now too that they're doing like the new regions. You're only going to be tested on shit from the 1700s on. Yeah. But like, what were black and brown people doing in the 1700s in a lot of places? So they've taken away old history, right? It used to be tested on 9th and 10th grade. 9th grade, you would learn 10,000 years ago to the 1700s.
The Egyptians don't even.
You understand? So now you're not tested on ancient history. So the 9th grade teacher really can do whatever the hell they want to do. I mean, give you a certain basic. You got to kind of know how did people get to this place to a degree in the 1700s. Right. But there's a lot of it that you're not, unless people are going to dig on their own now, they're never going to get in school anymore. Come to the future.
So a couple of things. What I mean? So that's what you're going to get. Like everything's political, right? Anything we do in life is political. So as we're teaching, we know that there's a certain slant to what we teach, because it's coming from us. Our experience is very different from most of our peers. So a couple of things, right? So we like to think. I think it does come across in our music. There's an edge, I think, to what we do.
Definitely.
And then just to mention to the point that you were saying, like being around the kids and knowing that. You know what? We can't be preachy. That's not what. Like if we preach, they look at us and they're like, you know, remember that the video, the De La Soul video, me, myself, and I, right? Like that face, the faces of the bored students. You don't want that, right? And a big part of it is that you don't want to preach to them. You want to include them, and I think that's for us. You know, when I think about CHILO and his voice is booming. But it's also welcoming, and it brings you into like this sphere.
Actual fact.
And so I feel like for us, it was, I think especially once we get into the album, especially with the sound, that I wanted to be able to bring people in and not exclude them, but without selling.
Well, let's segue into the album. What's interesting to summate some of that. A rare breed of to the listener, a rare breed of MCs that are hardcore, but aren't just talking down at you, because everybody that raps now is rapping to the custody. You know what I mean? So everybody's pissing on the custody. That's the only form you have and stuff. You know what I mean? But that's really right. Most rappers, that's all they do. But the album is called No Such Paradise. So I gotta start. There are two things to start with, though, right? Why that title? But also in the album bio, the description, you said something really, interesting there. You said this album was to display, you know, of course, you guys were talking in third person to yourself about yourselves, to display their humanity in hip hop form. You know, describe that a bit though, because that, you know, what I just said, like, you know, everything's just, you know, the dealer, the dominant dealer pissing on the custody, like, that's very hard to find in hip hop, you know, like humanity on the record, you know what I mean? Right. You guys, you know.
I mean, it's interesting because like I call CHILO the journeyman in my mind. He doesn't know that, but and journeymen to me are always the most important people in society, and they're overlooked. I don't think that CHILO's overlooked by people, by really important. I think a lot of important people who get it understand it, and I feel like for me. Knowing about CHILO, getting to know CHILO, his music's always genuine, and it comes from a place. Sorry, I'm speaking for you. But because I think as a producer, I always think about like the genuineness for CHILO that comes through. For me, I was going through a lot in this album, especially. My mom had just passed away. She passed away. Yeah, thank you, bro. So in 2016, she passed away, and then my son was born 2 months later, and so that's when my son
that's a real extremes.
Yeah, two extremes.
The extremes.
A lot of different emotions going on, you know, and having, like I said, a big family, a lot of stuff, a lot of feelings, a lot of emotions, a lot of realities, and so for me it was like when I put my son down so he could take a nap, it's like, oh man, how can I take this out? I started making the beats for the album, and you know, I was thinking some thoughts about like there is when we think about paradise, we like to think about paradise as this place of like when there is no pain, where there's no where everything is provided for you, where there's where your material needs are taken care of. And for me, it was like the material itself, you know, that in itself is transient. That goes, that leaves. And what are you left with, ultimately? So for personally, like I felt like paradise is really just an acceptance that there isn't a paradise, I guess, that there isn't escape from pain. And I think it's a Buddhist principle, right? So, when we say it's a Buddhist principle, really, you find that in many other spiritual circles, right? Yeah. So I just wanted to bring that out because the material stuff, all the materialism that we're surrounded with, and all of the material feeling, the need to get that kind of satisfaction, or the soothing from the pain or whatever, like that's all out there. It's accessible. But in reality, it's like for me, it's, you know, just acceptance that all this stuff is transient and that it goes away. So just appreciate what you got. Appreciate this. Appreciate our humanity.
I definitely see that. Yeah. So, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, he's breaking it down. You know, in reality, there's no such paradise.
That's what's up.
And as much as we try to reach it and we try to attain that, we spend our whole lives looking for this.
Yeah, and to us, it's also a big fuck you to capitalism too. That's the other side.
Right. But see, the thing is that when you say this, it sounds so negative,
depressing,
and depressing. But the album doesn't come off that way. You know what I'm saying? It does come off humane. Actually, they achieved the humanity that we're talking about. You know, but I think if we're talking about the beats, it achieves a lot of that because the beats, they have such a soulful presence. Though some of the soul samples is really like just dope. They're just dope. I'll snitch off air. You know what I mean? Thank you. I think that they really set the tone, the type of sampling that you were doing, though, the breaks that you were sampling and stuff. And, you know, a lot of people sample soul and they don't know how to put drums on them. Mm-hmm. You know, and that's become kind of a lost art, you know. And I'd rather you not put the drums if you don't know how to do it, you know what I mean? And here's some syncopated off thing that people are rhyming to now. I don't want to throw any darts.
Right.
Not in this show. I'll do it in another show by myself. But that way I'm just a lone shark out here. You know what I mean? Yeah, but I thought that it brought out such an energy. You know what I mean? So I just want to name a couple of songs and go through some of the songs.
Sure.
Obviously, the first one we go. By the way, the cover art and the art for the singles is beautiful work.
So, yeah, I had mentioned that I was a member of a group called 21 Poets, right? And so some of these members, this is when I first moved to the Bronx. Some of these cats were people that were from, it was like an online reality, like an online, like basically, I had met a lot of people online and we basically have formed this crew. As crazy as that sounds, in the early 2000s. And this one brother, he's a Mexican guy from Southern California, phenomenal artist. If you read about the artists that had painted on the 5 points and they watched over it,
right,
and they sued him, he was one of these brothers that got some of the compensation for that, actually. He's always been amazing. He draws these crazy Aztec stuff and everything. So I showed him some of the art. He loved it. And I came to him and I said, can you do something in between, like, what was it, like Aldous Huxley and like Wizard of Oz or something, like
Wizard of Oz,
and so gave him some of the songs of the album, the first couple 3 or 4 like singles we had, just so he could feel it. I always do that, like when we do singles, cover art for me. I like to give them some of the music, you know, so they can while they do the art. And it's been some of the best art yet that I really like to try to go out of my way to get nice art lately, more on my more recent albums.
Yeah, I felt like
that one we
gave
both
us the
kind of
fulfillment.
agreed. Yeah, and he killed it.
Yeah,
his name is Awkwords.
Yeah, definitely dope. The cover and then the singles to Real Is, and what was the other single?
See,
now those singles, those were done by a Queens artist named Con Boogie, who's actually a phenomenal MC as well.
Yeah, he does dope artwork. And he did the other album you did, right?
He's done part of my Stay Alive album that was also done by Martha Alicia Matarita, who's a famous, like, she does people's heads with animals on their heads, right? Mm-hmm. She's from Harlem. And so he collaborated with her on the Stay Alive album. He also did the CNI cover. Yeah.
Very dope, very dope. Yeah, very dope artwork, man. Yeah, you guys have great artwork, you know what I mean? But let's talk about the and I just like...
I drew Magician's Revenge.
In Hawaii, like I was like sending him. So I did that one. That was like the straight up DIY.
And that was piece too. For what we needed. For the listener, I always try to point out things. So when you go to their Bandcamp, when you listen to an album, and you buy the album, right? The first song in my head though, the Real Is, and that I love that sample. I love that song. I love that album. But I want you, the listener, to listen to the way Main Event is rhyming, especially at the end. There's a thing that he does at the end, you know what I'm saying, that where I call it like pocket clinging, where you're kind of clinging on the pocket to the very end, and you stick to it even more than before, you know what I mean? And if you want to know how dope MCing is, though, then you could hear the contrast and how he does it at the end. No, it's just dope. I don't want to quote it. I can't. It's going to come off whack, so I just won't do it.
Yeah.
But and it contrast. The thing about CHILO and Main Event as a duo to me is that you guys contrast so nicely on a track. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, what if CHILO was on his beat? Then what if something else was on it? And then you come in and rap. So it's like totally different. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's almost like mild-mannered while you're all out the box and out of the pocket, in the pocket, and everything. He's gliding in the pocket. But I gotta tell you, Main Event on this album compared to Magicians, the way you've rhymed in that pocket, though, is much more dangerous, you know what I mean, than what you've done before. It's really a really dope elevation. I was really like mad impressed though. But like on that song Real Is, like there's the contrast of your, what I always call your wavering inflections and the conversational tone, and that's what makes it. A lot of the humanity comes across because CHILO has a way of like speaking at you. You guys speak to us. You know what I'm saying? You're not speaking down at us like our life sucks, so and your life sucks too. You know what I mean? It doesn't come off like that. You know what I mean? But tell me about making Real Is though. Like, what were you thinking in that? The themes of the song. You know what I mean? Because it is kind of a thematic song for the whole album. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So Real Is.
Like, what is meaningful to you?
Yeah. That's right. So what's meaningful? What it kind of plays on different layers, I guess. One on different levels. One, it's what's meaningful to you, and just that's what you stay true to, right? And but also like saying, like if you stay true to that, then nothing else really matters, right? You don't have to cater to the to the masses. So for me, but it's interesting because the 3 verses, and we have our
John
guest,
Jiggs.
and John Jiggs.
Yeah.
John Jiggs brings a different element, which I loved because.
And I tell you, I'm originally from Riverhead, so like me and John Jiggs grew up together. Like I know John Jiggs since we were young. You know, I used to go out to the clubs out into the Riverhead is only a half hour out from the Hamptons, so we go out to the Hamptons. I would see them out there. He used to be part of a group called 495 Boys, who had a DJ who was actually one of my first really earliest DJs. So I'm just a teeny bit older than him, but I've known him for years. So when we asked him to get on the track, he was down with it, and he's been doing his thing lately. I'm really proud of him.
Yeah.
Because from where I come from, a lot of people. I mean, I know there's a lot of Long Island rappers, but where I come from in the era that I came up from, there wasn't a lot of Long Island people who were still doing it, and so I'm proud to see him still doing it. You know,
Y'all can't really complain now. Y'all go, "No, we don't have no rappers," and now everything.
No, it's true, right?
But not like in the 2000s though. You didn't see them like, you know, like
But
Yeah.
you know, so within that, like getting him on it was, I think, was like a cherry on top.
That's an old Riverhead of Queens.
Yeah. So, but for like, I know my verse. For my verse, it was like sticking to. It took me back to like hunger,
Corona,
and
yeah.
Corona.
Yeah.
Like, what happened? Like, what are the things that shaped me? And those things are like, well, the major moments in my life. Whether it was, you know, my and like seeing a young 16-year-old Dominican kid essentially get shot, and he just dies on the spot over some jealousy, and that, like, I don't want to glorify that. It's interesting because I pass it. It's kind of, you know,
Right.
Just
It's
like
kind of sad. Yeah.
just pray if Freddie would survive. Like, that was it. But then it was also like my pops, that my dad ends up getting diagnosed with schizoaffective disorder. So how does that throw things off? And without like me just harping on it, this is it. Like, I felt like it was like bouncing through moments in my life, without glorifying struggle. I guess, you know, like how you can romanticize struggle and so on and so forth. It's more like, this is it. This is real. This is my reality. But then it's also, I have control of that.
A lot of middling, shitty, great albums are about the struggle.
Yeah.
But this one is kind of like about the theme of the struggle, how you deal with struggle, the nature of struggle.
Yeah, and the power.
And that's
that
why
you
it comes
have.
like, I felt like Saints and Sinners was also crucial in that theme. You know,
Yeah.
like the duality of things, the nature that we have as saints, sinners, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And like, you know, obviously the cover alludes to that with the, you know.
Yeah, that fits into the thing.
You know,
Definitely,
yeah,
Saints and Sinners
you know?
does. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
so-
and you see the little Jason mask, but you also see the little flower on the cover. Yeah.
So it really, you know,
Yeah.
that
The gold teeth
It's
for the
such a-
snake, and the snake mouth.
yeah, it's
Little
such a
things.
It's also
right?
like a corn cob.
Yeah.
I felt like the album is so subtly thematic. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It doesn't bog you down with the theme. No,
Right.
like this is going to be this song, that song, like that. But I also felt, you know, because I have to make note
Yeah.
that you had a Never Respect Fake anthem in there. You had the Huh What. You know, which also was a little bit of an EPMD homage, you know.
It's
So
always-
You know, and we do that a
Of
couple
course, we
times.
had
If you
to-
listen to the first, we give a homage to a Nas line. You know what I mean? It's the hook,
Right,
right?
right, yeah,
So,
yeah.
but yeah, we do that throughout the album. If you
Yeah.
actually listen,
Yeah,
there's
I
a
like
bunch
that,
of other
yeah.
like old boom bap references, kind of. But
Well,
because I like that because you guys actually have bars. So
yo,
you
we
could-
caught a
you
lot
could
of
do
shit
in
for
a-
that.
yeah.
Actually, that song, man.
Really?
They were like, I almost
I
considered.
did originally
yeah,
on the
you
net
did.
because a lot of people was just like, "Oh, you're hating
The young kids.
You're hating on the young kids, man. You're hating on the youth." And I'm like, I'm not hating on the youth. I'm just hating on this
But
type
it was
shit.
facts. It
Yeah.
was facts.
And
You
it's
know what I mean?
really ultimately, it's not about the youth. We've actually,
Well, it
it's a
sound
big
like
fuck
a
you
bitter-
to that system that produces them.
A bit of old
It's
head.
really that. That's really what it is. We're not getting at the kids. We're like, yo, kids, we know what you're going through. We know why you're doing this. But it's them. Like, we got to talk about them. We got to deconstruct who they are. Who's creating this? Who's creating this situation?
Yeah, and you know, obviously, you know, I think that, you know, most of the kids today are delusional. They think they're dope. So yeah, hey, you know, but
ultimately, we put the choice on them. The choice is yours, right? It is a choice is yours moment for us.
He's doing black sheep.
It is. Yeah.
But let me dice in some of the stuff as we end the show and stuff. CHILO you were bugging me out the most. I thought immediately was in the verse starts. There's some starts that you have. You know, like the way you start verses and stuff. Like Awakening, you said just let the beat talk, deep thoughts, maybe jolt the rhythm of the citizen sleepwalk. Then you said Saints and Sinners. On Saints and Sinners, you said in this maze with so many lames to consider, eating with saints and sinners, stay for dinner. Then you had No Such Paradise. You said wicked intentions abound here. Regardless of what has transpired, we out here. Spirits scream nightly while you dare to dream. Then you said unfold the scroll. I'll leave it there. Unfold the scrolls, let the dust settle up, hold holes with the dice I chose to roll, tools for ciphering. Look what was read, I think I saw it once before in the Book of the Dead. Yes, and that does no justice to it because you got to hear how it sounds. You know, starting a verse was such a key thing. It really drives the album. It punches the album, you know, because a lot of the verses, they're varied. Like sometimes you start the song, sometimes you won't though. So they kind of upstart wherever they are.
And that was a lot of his.
Yeah, it's just
his decision.
I really like. There's a lot of production mastery here. Like I know what you're doing when you do that, you know.
Yeah.
But the other lyrical highlight though, I had to highlight one verse though, and it might go all Dyson on this one though. But the No Such Paradise main event. When I was saying that main event is right on another level though. Yeah. That verse was incredible. It was incredible. Let's see if I get some of this right.
Jefferson's pen.
Because I start from the part where it gets really, really layered. You know, there's a layering in here that's crazy. Where you said, I might get this wrong. Listen to the rap, the chirping, working. The final chapter as the working person's person worsens. The plebeian versions anesthetized, right? I can't even say it though. I can read it though. Plessy vs. Ferguson, still recognized as the disguised law of the land. Poison water euthanized brown women and man. I got a letter from you the other day. I opened it and it hit me like trash on a summer's day. Said I was a sucker for not going with the flow. So I'm a buck. A no-knock warrant at your door. As Fred Hampton reverberates, oppressive actions increase murder rates. Ice border patrol and weaponized hate. You slice part of our soul to make yourself great. Once again, let's playmate pretend. Masturbate and gyrate on Jefferson's pen. Woo! Woo, Matt. Man.
I think
and there's the American history.
Yeah, I've been writing that verse for 20 years, I think, and I think I mastered it. It's been like I've written a version of that verse in many different ways.
It's so dope. You know what I mean? Like and it's nothing to say. That's just the layering. The beginning, the way it's layering, it's hard to.
He's a master, bro.
Yeah, he's a master. He knows. He's just a pain in the ass for a producer, right? He knows it all though.
Yeah.
But the way you played off that, the way you used it, the way you know, and it's like you guys when you reference old things, you put yourself into tradition of that. It's just stellar. But there's so much more to say on it. I know there's so much more to you to say on it, but the album is available on the Bandcamp, right? Is it CHILO and Main Event?
CHILO Main Event .bandcamp.
You know what I mean? That's CHILO, CHILO. Main Event is MANEEVENT, like event. You know what I mean? And this is a great album. This is a great duo. These are great artists, and I think that this record is a shot. And it's like I could hear more greatness. You know, like you guys are getting better though. It's just unbelievable to me. You know what I mean? But I want to thank you for coming on the show, building about your history, your origins.
Thank you.
Making this record, the life that you lived that produced this record. You know what I mean? That your lives are important even outside of MCing, which makes you guys even more hip hop to me. You know what I mean?
Thank you.
But so with that said, until next time, there'll be a lot more stories to tell, writings to recite, and records to rewind and reminisce. Thank you to my guest CHILO on Main Event. I'm your host SUNEZ, aka Skilla Straight Low, and as always, the Power Right Show is a never respect fake broadcast. Peace.
Peace.
Peace.